Greetings, I'm Heather Lang-Cassera, the Clark County, Nevada Poet Laureate, and I am so happy to be here with you today to introduce you to a wonderful local writer who is also one of my colleagues over at Nevada State College. We are co-faculty advisors for the undergraduate creative writing club, and it is just such an honor to work with her. So thank you so much for being here with us today, Emily Hoover. I am so excited to have you here.
Thank you for inviting me. It's an honor to be with you.
Oh, absolutely. So I have quite a few questions for you, but I'm also really excited to hear your poem. So I think we'll start with a question about your poem, and then we will let the wonderful audience hear it, and then I'll have a few follow-ups because I can't wait till the end to hear your poem. So I know a little bit about what prompted or what sparked the poem that you're reading for us today. I'm really excited about that. I think it's super cool. So I'm wondering if you'd be willing to share it with our viewers, just sort of how it came to be.
Absolutely, for sure. That's a great question. So I had been watching a lot of Bob Ross trying to nap over the summer because he's just so soothing. And then our creative writing club, the Blue Sage Writers Guild, we had a Bob Ross Wednesday where folks would paint alongside a recording of Bob Ross, or they would write. So I don't have any painting supplies, so I decided that I would write. And I just kept thinking about a pleasant nap that I had involving Bob Ross. And the last thing that I remembered was when he said he made a mistake, I guess, on the canvas, and he said, "No mistakes, just happy accidents."
Yes.
And that refrain just sort of stuck with me for a long time until I was hiking, and then the poem came from that hiking trip.
That's so cool. That's such like a classic Bob Ross line. It really speaks to me. And as you know, I love to write poetry about other visual art, so I was just so stoked about this whole thing. Okay, so could we hear your amazing poem? Would you be willing to read it for us, Emily?
Absolutely. The poem is called Middle Summit. But first, an epigraph. No mistakes, just happy accidents. Bob Ross. When we lived in the mountains, it was aspen we saw on our weekly hikes. Neon green leaves pristine against slender trunks of gray ash. Snowfall gone, but its presence felt in my cheeks. The bones of winter prominent, like a clavicle, even in high altitude sun. We settled in alpine desert after being wed in a butterfly garden the previous spring. We were shrouded in clouds but didn't know it, and like the cloud, we didn't last. 7 years after those hikes, 7 months after leaving our life, I watch my lover ascend a canyon of fiery aspens. Hovering above us is a wispy cloud that offers respite from the central Nevada sun that stains my skin pink. He carries his weight like water with the same sureness that you had when you'd look through me and say I'd never leave. My chest heaves when I quicken my pace, place my hand on my lover's waist as I pass him, my calves pleading. At the middle summit, aspens dance, their rust-colored leaves glistening in the afternoon sun shower. I remember when we'd dance in the kitchen without music, how close my ear was to your heart, my hand encased in yours. I don't miss the rhythm of your heart in my ears, because I can hear my own heart in my head as my lungs recover from this uphill climb. Like painting, love is a place for happy accidents. My boots slip. Song of my own breath catches my fall.
So good. So I've heard that poem a couple times, and I just love it more every single time. It's so powerful, it's so moving, it's so beautifully crafted. Like, I literally have chills right now.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for reading it. So I know that you're an exceptional writer, and it definitely shows in ways including your attention to metaphor and to imagery and to sound, like just all of it. So I was wondering if you might be willing to speak just a little bit about your process, about how you go about writing a poem or paying attention to those elements of craft.
Sure. So I think for me, I guess the metaphor came first. I was working with some similes. I was, of course, listening to Bob Ross in my mind, and really when I saw the trees, I was reminded of his paintings. I mean, it really kind of came from that. And then, of course, the imagery, most of it is real, some of it is imagined, but really the sound aspect, I think, is my favorite part of writing poetry. I've spent most of my life as a creative writer writing fiction. So when I began to really pursue poetry, I would read my work out loud, obsessively.
Yes.
And then I would change, verbs maybe, or other parts of speech, because I would hear a slant rhyme, or I would hear some repetition, or just something that might be interesting. So I would always kind of labor over those small pieces. But this poem really came out of me pretty quickly. Like, usually it takes me a good first, second, third draft of reading obsessively and pacing around and talking to myself and all of those things, but this piece just kind of was ready, and there were really just a couple small rhymes that I didn't think about that I revised.
That's super cool. Yeah. That's amazing. I love hearing about revision being part of the process. For me, that's actually one of the most fun parts of writing. Like, I'll write a poem, and then it's, like the adjusting it, the editing things out, the tweaking it a little bit to really make it sing. Like, that's what I love about poetry. So I know that, you and I were educators, so we think about, writing is revision, revision is writing.
Always.
But it's true, and it can be so fun. So fun. So I also know that you are an avid hiker, something that I really love. I love seeing your photos of all the places that you go. So I was hoping you might share with our viewers today a little bit about what you love about hiking, and if you have any recommendations about where to go.
Sure, absolutely. So I love hiking, I think, because it allows me, or it affords an opportunity to really shut my mind off. I have a really hard time doing that, particularly during these uncertain times. And this allows me to just focus on, the nature, the silence. If I have a companion with me, of course, we're talking, but oftentimes I just really feel present in my body, right? And when I'm present in my body and I can let go of everything else, it's almost like a meditative activity like yoga or something like that. And then I find that my poems will come to me oftentimes when I'm hiking. So I feel like it's good for the mind, the body, and the spirit. And I am proud to say that in 2020, I think 4 or 5 of my poems came to me while I was thinking and hiking. So,
cool.
Yeah, and I never really experienced that until the pandemic. But when we all just kind of had to collectively slow down,
right,
and take a moment to regroup, I just was able to find myself on the trail.
That's awesome.
Yeah. In terms of recommendations, I mean, that's really challenging because, it's such a beautiful place that we live. I would definitely say Lake Mead is a place that, of course, I visited as a tourist a few times with my parents and that kind of thing when they would come to town. But I've recently begun to explore Lake Mead and its vastness. And I mean, there are so many things that you can do if you're just on lakeshore. You could just park your car and just walk the wash.
Wow.
Right? Or try to get to the lake. So I, of course, recommend, trying to see if you can find a trail ahead of time just so you don't get lost and you're hydrated and all those things. But really, you don't have to go on this journey. I mean, you can really just park and kind of see where it takes you. Another place that I would recommend is Desert Wildlife Refuge on the north side. It's one of my favorite places. Lots of cholla, lots of Joshua trees. And I'm a big plant person, so I get excited when I see my little cuties, my little chollas, and all my little cactus friends. So
I love it so much. Those are great recommendations.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for asking.
Thanks for being here today, Emily.
Thank
I
you so
appreciate
much.
you.
Yes, I appreciate you. It's an honor to be here and to read my work.
Oh, it's so good. I'm so excited. Thank you so much for joining us for poetry. It's just really a wonderful way to connect with ourselves, to connect with the natural world, to connect with each other, even while we are doing things like sheltering in place. So thanks for making time for poetry, and I hope you can find more time to read and write some poems. Take care.